It started like a regular Tuesday morning in a quiet courtroom on the edge of Los Angeles. The air was cold, the benches were half filled, and no one expected anything unusual. But the silence broke the moment a small girl stepped in, holding a worn-out teddy bear, her tiny hands shaking, her big eyes filled with tears. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old, and yet she stood there all alone, facing the judge with no lawyer by her side. The courtroom fell into a hush. Even the judge paused, lifting his head slowly to understand what was happening. Everyone stared at her, confused. Why was a little girl standing in the witness box? Why was there no adult with her? The judge leaned forward, his voice kind but puzzled. "Where are your parents, sweetie?" he asked gently. The little girl looked down at her shoes, then up again, and whispered, "They said they don't want me anymore." And just like that, the room changed. Gasps rippled across the courtroom. A woman in the back dropped her coffee. A lawyer on the right side of the room dropped his pen. No one knew how to respond. The judge blinked, clearly shaken, and said, "Can someone please explain what's going on?" A social worker rushed in late, her face red and her papers spilling. From her folder, "I'm so sorry, Your Honor," she said quickly. "This is Emily. Her case was moved last minute. Her parents, they abandoned her 2 nights ago. The system couldn't find foster placement in time, so she had to come directly to court today." Someone in the audience muttered, "This is heartbreaking." Another whispered, "How can parents do that to a child?" But Emily stood still, hugging her bear tightly, trying not to cry louder. At that exact moment, Keanu Reeves happened to be in the same courthouse. He had come quietly to support a friend in a different courtroom upstairs. He was dressed simple, in a plain black hoodie, jeans, and a cap. He didn't want anyone to recognize him. He liked to blend in. But when he overheard the commotion downstairs, something made him stop. He paused on the stairs. He heard a little girl's voice trembling. Something about it stirred something deep inside him. Keanu walked down slowly, his steps quiet, almost hesitant. He didn't want to interrupt anything. But when he peeked into the courtroom and saw Emily standing there alone, his heart dropped. Her small shoulders shaking, her voice cracking as she tried to explain how she didn't know what she did wrong. The judge tried to move things forward. "We're going to place you somewhere safe, Emily," he said, trying to reassure her. But Emily finally burst into tears. "I don't want to go to another house. They keep sending me to strangers. And then they send me back. I just want someone to love me." Keanu couldn't stand still anymore. He stepped inside the courtroom. Quietly, humbly, and gently raised his hand. "Your Honor," he said, his voice calm but serious. "I'm sorry to interrupt. But, may I speak?" The whole room turned. Someone whispered, "Is that Keanu Reeves?" But no one said anything louder. The judge blinked, surprised, then nodded. "Yes, please." Keanu looked at Emily, then at the judge. "I'm not here for any fame, and I don't know this girl. But no child should ever have to stand in court like this, alone, afraid, trying to understand things that even adults can't." His words hit deep. People in the courtroom looked down. One woman wiped her eyes. The judge stayed quiet for a moment, letting the words hang in the air. Then Keanu continued, "I don't know her story, but I'd like to hear it. Not for a headline, not for attention, just as a person who was once a lonely kid too." Emily looked up at him slowly, her cheeks wet. "You were lonely too?" Keanu nodded. "Yes, I lost people too. And I know how scary the world feels when you think no one wants you." A deep silence filled the courtroom. It wasn't just about Emily anymore. It was about every child like her. About every adult who had ever been left behind. The judge leaned back in his chair and asked, "Mr. Reeves, are you requesting to be part of this hearing?" Keanu looked at Emily again and simply said, "If she's okay with it, I'd like to be here for her. And if she wants, I'll listen, truly listen." Emily gave a tiny nod. Something in her face softened. The judge sighed, clearly moved. "Then, with her permission, you may stay, and Emily, you may speak freely now." And so began the most unexpected and emotional courtroom moment anyone had seen. Keanu sat quietly beside her, not as a celebrity, not as a star, but just as a human, a listener, a presence. And as Emily started to share her story of silent nights, of being moved from home to home, of never having a birthday cake, of hiding under tables when people fought, something inside the room changed. It wasn't just a hearing anymore. It was a mirror to the world outside, and no one, not even Keanu, was prepared for the truth that Emily was about to uncover. Next. Emily sat on the wooden bench beside Keanu, her small legs barely reaching the floor. She clutched her teddy bear, its fabric worn and torn at the ears, and looked around the courtroom as if she was still expecting someone to come in and take her home. But no one did. Just silence. Keanu leaned slightly toward her, his voice soft. "You don't have to be afraid anymore, Emily. You're not alone right now." Emily nodded slowly but didn't smile. Instead, she whispered, "They said I talk too much. They said I ask too many questions. They said I'm not easy." The judge, who had been listening closely, gently said, "Emily, can you tell us what happened the last time you were at home?" Emily paused, then took a deep breath. "My mom left a long time ago. I don't really remember her face. Then Dad got married again. My stepmom didn't like me. She used to lock the fridge at night. She told me I wasn't her real daughter." Her voice trembled. "Then one day I spilled juice on the floor by accident. She yelled a lot. Then, Dad, he told me to pack my things. And they dropped me at a shelter." Someone in the courtroom gasped quietly. The social worker closed her eyes for a moment, as if she already knew, but hearing it from the child made it worse. Keanu single quotes, S jaw tightened, but he stayed calm. He knew the pain of losing people, but hearing this from a child hit different. It wasn't just about being unwanted, it was about being unseen. Unheard. The judge asked, "Did anyone ever hurt you physically?" Emily shook her head. "Not really, but sometimes my stepmom would grab my arm hard, and once she pushed me down. But Daddy didn't see it, and when I told him, he said I was being dramatic." Keanu looked at her, his voice gentle again. "You're not dramatic, you're brave. Telling the truth takes courage." Emily blinked, then finally gave the smallest smile. It lasted a second, but it was there. Then came the twist. The judge motioned to the social worker. "Please present the documents regarding the child's file." She opened a folder, her hands trembling slightly. "Yes, Your Honor. According to our investigation, the father and stepmother filed for release of custody, citing inability to provide care, but..." She stopped. Her eyes scanned a page slowly. "This doesn't make sense," the judge frowned. "What doesn't?" She flipped the page and looked confused. "The papers say Emily is not biologically their child, but the birth certificate lists the father's name clearly. Same address, same hospital, same date." The judge looked sharply at her. "So you're saying..." "I'm saying," the social worker interrupted, "there's something wrong. Here, the file was altered. Someone's trying to erase their legal responsibility." A chill passed through the room. Keanu sat up straighter. Why would they do that? The social worker didn't answer, but Emily looked up and said softly, "Because of the money." Everyone turned toward her again. "What money, Emily?" the judge asked. Emily blinked slowly. "My grandma left me something. I remember Daddy talking about it on the phone. He didn't know I was listening. He said he couldn't touch the money unless I was 18, and he was mad." The judge's eyes narrowed. "Is there a trust fund in her name?" The social worker flipped more pages quickly. Then she found it. Yes. A trust set up by the grandmother. Over $200,000. Locked until Emily turns 18 or is adopted by a legal guardian. Everyone in the courtroom froze. Keanu single quotes as heart pounded. He had seen greed before, but using a child like this? Abandoning her just to avoid waiting for money? Emily hugged her teddy tighter and whispered, "I didn't want the money. I just wanted a family." Those words broke something inside Keanu. He stood up, facing the judge. "Your Honor," he said quietly, "I don't know the legal process. I don't know what steps are needed, but if no one wants her, I do." The courtroom burst into whispers. Reporters outside the hall started pressing their ears to the door. The judge stared in disbelief. "Mr. Reeves, are you requesting custody?" Keanu nodded. "Yes." "If you have me," Emily looked up, her eyes wide. "You'd want me?" Keanu bent down to her level. "I would be honored, Emily. Not because of money, not for any reason like that, but because you're a strong, kind, smart girl. And you deserve a life full of love and safety." Emily blinked fast as her eyes filled with tears. She nodded. But just when things seemed to shift toward hope. The courtroom door opened loudly. A man in a suit stormed in. "Your Honor." He shouted, "I'm Michael Barnes. I represent the father. We demand the court dismiss all talk of custody until we are properly heard." Keanu turned slowly. So did Emily. Her face went pale. "That's him," she whispered. "That's my dad's lawyer." The judge banged the gavel. "Order, Mr. Barnes. You are late to the hearing. You've missed crucial testimony." Barnes smirked. "Doesn't matter. I have orders to challenge any move for custody. The father is requesting full dismissal of all parental rights but still demands access to the trust if the child is placed elsewhere." "That's not how it works," the social worker said firmly, but Barnes grinned like he knew something others didn't. "That's where you're wrong. We have a legal loophole, and we intend to use it." Emily looked terrified again. Keanu took her hand gently. "I'm not going anywhere," he whispered. But even he didn't know just how dirty this legal battle was about to get. Because the father's team wasn't just playing with papers. They were hiding something. Something that would turn the case upside down. The air in the courtroom turned heavier as the judge ordered a short recess. People whispered in the back, and the guards near the doors exchanged tense glances. No one expected the case of a silent little girl to grow into something bigger. Something more complicated than anyone could imagine. Keanu stayed close to Emily, who was now sitting quietly with her feet swinging gently off the bench. She didn't say much. She just held onto his hand like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. Outside the courtroom, reporters had started to gather. Someone had leaked that Keanu Reeves was involved in a custody case, and now the media buzz had begun. Inside, though, it wasn't about fame or noise. It was about a child. When the judge returned, he looked stern. "Mr. Barnes," he said, turning to the father's lawyer, "you came in late and interrupted an emotional testimony. Now you are claiming access to a trust fund while the father wants to give up his child. Do you have any proof of this legal loophole?" Barnes stood confidently, straightening his tie. "Your Honor, my client never wanted to abandon his daughter entirely. He merely feared he wasn't the right parent for her anymore. But he believes someone from the family should have access to her welfare funds, even if placed elsewhere." Keanu's voice was calm but firm. "So he wants her money, not her." "Objection." Barnes barked. The judge raised his hand. "Overruled." He looked at Keanu. "Please continue, Mr. Reeves." Keanu nodded and stepped forward. "This isn't about who's related by blood. It's about who shows up, who listens, who protects. She doesn't need someone chasing after her trust. She needs someone who sees her as more than a burden." Emily smiled at him quietly. But then she turned toward the judge and asked in a soft voice, "Can I say something?" The judge blinked. "Of course, Emily. Speak freely." She stood up, holding her teddy bear in both arms. She walked slowly to the middle of the courtroom, everyone's eyes on her. "I remember one night," she began. "My stepmom told me to sleep in the garage because I had a nightmare and cried too loud. It was cold. There were spiders. I asked Daddy if I could come back inside, and he told me to toughen up. I was 6. A woman in the audience gasped. Emily continued, her voice trembling but steady. "They told me I was too much. Too loud. Too soft. Too needy. But all I wanted was a hug. Just one hug before bed. I don't want their money. I want to be safe. And if KeanuReeves wants to take care of me, I want to go with him." The room fell silent again. A deep, painful silence. The judge turned toward the lawyer. "Does the father wish to contest the child's personal testimony?" Barnes hesitated. Then, surprisingly, he said, "The father wishes to remain anonymous in these proceedings for—" "Now, Your Honor," the judge's eyes narrowed. "Anonymous? He's the biological parent. How can he remain hidden while trying to interfere?" The social worker interrupted, flipping another page. "Your Honor, there's something strange. The original birth certificate and hospital files were digitally altered. This birth record was updated 2 years after Emily's birth. The original document was sealed." Keanu looked at her. "Why would someone seal a birth record?" The room went still again. The judge said, "We need the original document unsealed." An assistant rushed out to contact the Vital Records Department. Meanwhile, Barnes sat down quickly, whispering into his phone. He seemed nervous now, more defensive than before. Keanu stayed by Emily's side. He looked down at her. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "I just want this to be over." An hour later, the assistant returned with a file. He handed it to the judge. The judge opened it, scanned the page, then stopped, his hand slowly lowered. He looked at Emily, then at Keanu, then at Barnes. "This changes everything," he said quietly. Keanu leaned forward. "What is it?" The judge spoke slowly. "Emily's original birth certificate lists a different father. Her biological father is not the man who raised her for the past few years." Gasps rippled through the room. "Then who is her father?" The social worker asked. The judge looked up. "Her biological father's name is Jonathan Rivera. The name matches a police record. He was arrested for fraud and identity theft 12 years ago and released 5 years ago. The man who raised Emily may not be her real father at all." Emily's eyes widened. "What does that mean?" Keanu bent down beside her again. "It means the truth is finally coming out." But before anyone could speak further, Barnes stood up, panic on his face. "Your Honor, we request immediate dismissal of this case. The man I represent had no knowledge of the falsified document. He believed he was the father." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Is that what he told you?" Barnes hesitated. "Yes, that's what he told me." The judge then looked at the social worker. "You'll need to verify the true paternity. We will request a test. And in the meantime," he turned to Keanu, "are you still willing to proceed with temporary custody?" Keanu looked at Emily, who was now quietly crying again. He gently wiped her tears. "Yes, Your Honor, whatever it takes. I won't walk away from her." The judge nodded. "Approved. You are granted emergency temporary guardianship pending further investigation." Tears rolled down Emily's cheeks. But this time, it wasn't from fear. It was from hope. Keanu reached for her hand. "You're coming with me, not just to a house, but to a home." Emily hugged him tightly, the teddy bear squished between them. But as they turned to leave the courtroom, Barnes suddenly blurted out, "You don't understand. If this gets out, the man who raised her isn't just lying. He's dangerous. And he'll do anything to cover this up. Everyone turned toward him again. Keanu froze. What do you mean anything? Barnes's voice dropped to a whisper. He once threatened a woman who found out the truth. She disappeared a month later. The judge's face turned pale. Mr. Reeves, for the safety of this child, you must keep her location private. Keanu nodded slowly. I will. But now, I need to know what really happened, who this man is, and what he's hiding. Because this wasn't just a custody case anymore. This was a cover-up. And Emily's life might be in more danger than anyone had realized. Keanu didn't speak. As they walked through the parking lot, he held Emily's hand in one of his own and carried her small backpack in the other. The sky was overcast, and the clouds seemed to carry the same heavy questions that now filled his heart. Emily looked up at him as they reached his car. Are we safe now? Keanu bent down, looked her in the eyes, and answered gently, We're going to be, I promise. But we have to be smart and careful. He opened the door and helped her in. She clutched her bear close, the same way a soldier holds a shield. She was brave. Maybe braver than anyone he'd ever met. Keanu didn't drive to his house. Instead, he took her to a small guest house on a property owned by a close friend, someone he trusted completely, someone far from cameras and reporters. The place was quiet, surrounded by trees and a fence that kept out more than just animals. Emily looked around the cozy little space. Is this yours? Keanu shook his head. No, but it's safe, and it's ours for now. She nodded, then whispered, Thank you. While Emily rested, Keanu stepped outside and called a private investigator he had worked with once during a past situation involving a friend's safety. The man's name was Rob. He didn't ask many questions, just got the job done. Keanu explained the situation briefly. Her real father might have never been in her life, he said. But the man who raised her, he might not even be who he says he is. His records are confusing, and the lawyer mentioned a missing woman who knew the truth. Rob answered, Send me what you've got. I'll dig. Quietly, back inside, Emily had curled up on the small couch with a blanket. The TV was off. She was just staring at the wall, her teddy bear beside her, quiet and thoughtful. Keanu walked over and sat nearby. You okay? He asked. Do you think he'll come find me? She whispered. Keanu thought carefully before answering. If he tries, I'll be here, and we'll let the law stop him. But you're not alone anymore, Emily, she nodded. But her small fingers were still trembling. Later that night, Rob called back. You were right, Rob said. The man who raised her isn't who he claims to be. He's using the name Mark Ellison, but his real name is Derek Wells. He was involved in a fraud scheme years ago, changed his identity, married a woman who passed away shortly after, possibly suspicious circumstances. Keanu's blood ran cold. And Emily? He took custody of her after marrying her mother. The mother died months later. The death was ruled an accident, but the timing is strange. Keanu swallowed hard. What about the missing woman Barnes mentioned? Rob answered slowly. Her name was Janet Hall. She worked in child welfare. She was the first to notice inconsistencies in Emily's paperwork. She filed an internal complaint. 3 weeks later, she vanished. Keanu sat back. Everything was starting to line up. Lies, fake names, missing people, and a little girl caught in the middle. He glanced at Emily. She was asleep now. Peaceful for the first time. He whispered to Rob. I need everything documented. This needs to go to the judge quietly. We can't let him know we're onto him. You got it, Rob said. But Keanu, be careful. This guy isn't just greedy, he's dangerous. If he knows you're with her, he may come after you both. Keanu hung up and stared at the phone for a long moment. The next morning, the news was already spreading. Reporters had picked up the courtroom drama. Photos of Keanu beside the girl had leaked. People were asking questions. Keanu made a public statement to control the damage. He spoke in simple words. I'm helping a child who's been through a lot. Please respect her privacy. This is not about fame. It's about giving her a safe future. Most people respected that. But not everyone. A black car was spotted outside the guest house that evening. Parked across the street, engine off. The man inside didn't get out, just watched. Then drove away after a while. Keanu knew it had begun. He called the judge directly, sent Rob's findings, and requested an emergency private hearing. The judge agreed. The next morning, Keanu and Emily were escorted quietly into the courthouse through the back entrance. The courtroom was closed to the public. The judge looked serious. KeanuReeves, these findings are troubling. Are you certain about your investigator's information? Keanu nodded. Yes, Your Honor, and I believe Emily is in danger. Not just legally, physically, the judge sighed. I've seen enough to launch a full investigation and to order immediate protection for the child. Emily clung to Keanu's side, but just before the hearing ended, the courtroom phone rang. The judge answered, frowned, then looked at Keanu. There's a man downstairs. Claims he's here for visitation. Says he's Emily's father. He has papers. Keanu's fists clenched. It's him. The judge turned to the bailiff. Do not let him in. Place the building under lockdown and call the police. If he tries to leave, stop him. Emily began to cry softly. Keanu wrapped his arms around her. I've got you. I'm not letting go. The judge said, this case is no longer just a custody matter. It's a criminal investigation now, and Reeves, your help may have just saved this child's life, but what none of them knew was that the man pretending to be her father had something else planned. He wasn't going to walk away easily. And the real reason he wanted Emily gone hadn't even come to light yet. The courthouse had never felt so tense. Officers moved quickly through the halls, securing exits and checking every hallway. Keanu held Emily close as the judge ordered the child to be moved to a protected location. The man downstairs, who now called himself Mark Ellison but was really Derek Wells, had shown fake documents, all carefully forged. And now finally, the law was closing in, but Derek had a plan. He always did. He slipped out of the building before police could reach him. The black car that was seen outside the guest house had disappeared. Officers scanned the footage but found nothing useful. He was careful, cold, calculated. Keanu and Emily were taken to a private cabin upstate by 2 security officers. The place belonged to an old friend of Keanu's who worked in film but stayed out of the spotlight. The cabin was hidden between thick trees near a frozen lake, where silence was a blanket and safety felt possible for now. Inside the cabin, Emily sat beside a crackling fireplace. She didn't talk much that night. She simply stared into the flames, her little fingers gripping the edges of her teddy bear, like it was the only thing left in the world that hadn't betrayed her. Keanu sat across from her, his hands folded, watching her gently. You don't have to be strong all the time, he said. You're allowed to feel whatever you feel. She looked up at him. Are you going to leave too? He shook his head. No, not ever. She didn't speak again, but she slid her teddy over next to him, like a tiny symbol of trust. Keanu took it gently and placed it on his lap, smiling at her softly. Meanwhile, back in Los Angeles, Rob the investigator dug deeper into Derek Wells's past. And what he found chilled even him. He called Keanu that night. Listen, Rob said. This is worse than we thought. Derek didn't just lie about being Emily's father. He was never legally married to Emily's mother. He created fake documents to get access to her finances after she passed away. And the autopsy on her death? It was rushed. I found a nurse who said she tried to ask for a second review. 2 weeks later, she was fired. Keanu stood up from the chair, staring out the window into the snowy woods. So you're telling me? I'm telling you, Rob said. He might have had something to do with her death, and then he went after the money left for Emily. He's been planning this for years. And now that Emily's away from him, he's losing control. Keanu's jaw clenched. He's not getting near her again. Rob added, "We also traced Janet Hale, the missing welfare worker. Turns out her last email before disappearing was about Emily. She knew the truth, and she was scared, then nothing." Keanu looked over at Emily, now asleep on the couch. She looked peaceful for once, wrapped in a thick blanket, safe for now. But safety wouldn't last long. Because the next morning, warning came. A brick was thrown through the front window of the courthouse in Los Angeles. Attached was a message scribbled in black marker. "You stole what's mine. Give her back." The judge went pale when he saw it. He called Keanu immediately. "This man is unhinged. We're putting full police protection on you both. We're also issuing a warrant for Derek Wells's arrest." But Keanu knew something the judge didn't single quotes did a man like Derek. He wouldn't wait for a warrant. He wouldn't wait for court. He would come in the dark, when no one expected. And Keanu knew he had to be ready. He told the officers to increase patrol around the cabin. He stayed up that night, sitting near the door, watching the woods, but nothing happened. The second night, still silence. But on the third night, around 2:43 a.m., the motion sensor lights behind the cabin flicked on. Keanu was already awake. He stood quickly, moved silently to the back, and peered through the window. Nothing, just trees, snow, silence. But then he saw a shadow, moving slow. Too careful to be wildlife, he motioned quietly to the officers sleeping in the room next door. They jumped up, weapons drawn, and within seconds surrounded the cabin. But the shadow was gone. Only one thing was found: a shoe print. Deep in the snow, left by a man with heavy boots, leading to the back of the cabin, and then vanishing into the trees. Keanu stared at it. He knew he had come not to knock, not to talk, but to take. The officers followed the trail, but it disappeared. Halfway to the lake. Back inside, Emily woke up crying. "I had a dream," she whispered, "that he found me." Keanu hugged her tight. He didn't, he won't. But he knew it wasn't a dream. He knew Derek was getting closer, and he knew that to protect her, they couldn't keep hiding. They had to expose the full truth. Rob called again the next day with something huge. "We found Janet Hale's car," he said. It was abandoned in a storage unit Derek used to rent under a fake name, and inside was a flash drive. Keanu leaned in. "What's on it?" Rob answered slowly. "Videos. Documents. Everything. She recorded a confession before disappearing. And she names Derek Wells. She says she feared for her life. Says she tried to warn the agency. No one listened." Keanu whispered, "Send it to the judge and the police. Send it everywhere." And so he did. Within hours, everything changed. Derek Wells went from a questionable guardian to a wanted criminal. But no one had found him yet, and as night fell again, Keanu felt it in his bones. The final confrontation was coming. Snow fell softly outside the cabin as Keanu stood by the window, his eyes scanning the trees. It was almost midnight. The world was quiet, but inside his chest, his heart beat loud. The threat wasn't gone. It was just waiting, hiding. Emily had fallen asleep again, wrapped up in 2 thick blankets, her teddy bear under her arm. Her breathing was soft. She looked safe, but Keanu knew true safety doesn't come from locked doors or tall fences. It comes when truth is louder than fear, and that moment was almost here. Suddenly, Keanu's phone buzzed. It was Rob. "You need to hear this," Rob said. "He's desperate now." He made a call to someone using a hidden number. We tapped it. Derek said, "If I don't get her, everything crashes. They'll know what I did to her mother. I buried it all, but the girl. She remembers." Keanu's throat tightened. He's afraid she'd talk. Exactly, Rob said. He knows she saw more than anyone realized. He didn't just want her for the trust. He needed to silence her. Keanu glanced at Emily. She had said before that she didn't remember her mother's face, but maybe her mind was just protecting her from something dark. Keanu whispered, "He's not getting anywhere near her. Not again." But as he hung up, the power flickered. Once, twice, then died. Darkness fell over the cabin. "Stay calm," one of the guards said. They moved fast, flashlights in hand. But something was wrong. The backup generator didn't come on. The lines had been cut. "Check the doors," Keanu said. But it was too late. A loud crash came from the back. One window shattered. One of the guards rushed in, shouting, "He's in the woods." Keanu ran to Emily, who had just woken up, terrified. "What's happening?" she cried. "Stay with me," he said. "No matter what." They moved to the secure room in the cabin's basement. One guard stayed with them. The other went outside to trap the intruder. Emily shook with fear. "It's him, isn't it?" Keanu looked her in the eyes. "Yes, but he's not going to hurt you, I promise." Then, from upstairs, a voice echoed through the broken window. "Give her to me, Keanu. You don't know what you're protecting." Keanu stepped toward the stairs, his voice calm but steady. "You're right, Derek. I don't know everything. But I know you're not her father, and I know you let her mother die." A long silence followed. Then Derek's voice returned, angry, twisted. "She was going to leave me, take the money, take the girl. I couldn't let that happen. I did what I had to do." Keanu's fists clenched. But then something unexpected happened. Emily stepped forward. Her voice small but sharp. "I remember now." Keanu turned fast. "What?" Tears ran down her face. "The night my mom died, she was crying. I heard yelling. I heard glass break. And then I heard her say, 'Please, not in front of Emily.' Then silence." Keanu knelt beside her. "You remember all that?" She nodded. "I was hiding behind the curtain. I saw his shoes. They were muddy. He walked out, then came back and said she fell. But I knew she didn't." Keanu looked toward the door. "Emily, you're brave, more than anyone I've ever met." A minute later, police sirens finally pierced the silence. The backup team Rob had called had arrived. Red and blue lights flickered through the trees. Derek tried to run, but he didn't get far. He was tackled in the snow, face down, screaming about lies and betrayal. But no one listened to him anymore. The truth had spoken. Inside the cabin, Keanu hugged Emily close. "It's over," he whispered. "You're free now." Weeks later, in a calm courtroom with no noise, no reporters, and no chaos, the judge smiled gently. "In light of the truth revealed, and after a full investigation, we officially terminate all ties between the child and Derek Wells, who now faces criminal charges. Mr. Reeves, do you still wish to continue with permanent guardianship of Emily?" Keanu didn't hesitate. "With all my heart." The judge nodded. "Then by the power of this court, I grant the adoption. Effective immediately. Emily is now officially in your care, your home, and your family." Emily turned to Keanu, eyes wide, a real smile blooming for the first time. "Can I call you Dad?" she asked softly. Keanu single quotes as eyes filled. "Only if I can call you daughter." They hugged right there. As the courtroom rose in quiet applause, the judge wiped a tear from his eye. Even the clerk smiled. Something about this case had changed them all. Months later, Emily sat at a wooden desk by the window of her new room, drawing. Birds chirped outside. Her laughter echoed through the halls. Keanu walked in with a plate of cookies. She looked up and said, "You know, I don't have nightmares anymore." Keanu smiled. "You're safe now." "No," she said proudly. "I'm loved now." He knelt beside her and whispered, "Yes, you are." And for the first time in her life, Emily knew those words were true.